Hello gamers! As the title suggests, this video is about how I legitimately became a billionaire in Animal Crossing in real time. Before we get into how I made it happen and all the details, I just want to say that Animal Crossing has been one of my favorite series for over 2 decades now, and I have especially fond memories of playing the first one as a kid. I've played every major release since then, and for whatever reason I was possessed to stream my journey through New Horizons. About 3 or 4 months into that, I decided I should try to complete the catalog and 100% the game. Fast forward 4 years later, and I was done in April 2024. After a little bit of a break and some last minute research, I began my GameCube Animal Crossing journey on December 10th, 2024. My goal in this has been to document, showcase, and 100% the game in real time, and for those who don't know, that means no time traveling. I've been streaming all of my progress live on Twitch daily and will continue to do so until I 100% the game. My general philosophy has been to aim to be as efficient as I can without going as far as min-maxing. On that note, I created my town and went with the first one I got as I thought that was the right call to make. The first month or so was spent getting my town and starting funds established. I replaced most of my trees with foreign fruit so that I could return to my roots of orchard maxing, and I managed to make 1.5 mil in time for the first full week of January. Now would probably be the best time to explain how you're meant to go about this, and that would be the stock market. I'm sure others can explain it better, and many may already know, but every Sunday from 6 AM to noon, Joan will visit your town and offer to sell you turnips at a variable price. Turnips are only good for a week, and will spoil and be worth nothing the Sunday after you purchase them. Tom Nook will offer a varying price from Monday to Saturday to buy the turnips you just bought, following one of 3 price patterns. A random spike, where the price can increase slightly, decrease greatly, or spike to 8 times the initial buying price from Joan. A random no spike, where it can increase slightly or decrease greatly, or a decreasing pattern where the price drops every day. Unlike the later games in the series, there's only 1 price per day, whereas the later games have a morning and an afternoon price. To overly simplify the process, you buy as many turnips as you can from Joan on a Sunday, and then wait until you hopefully get a spike during the week, so that you can make 7 times the amount that you purchased. There's a lot more to it than that, so bear with me while I explain. For those unfamiliar with the GameCube version of Animal Crossing, the town is made up of 30 different 16 by 16 acres, ranging from A1 to F5. As you move between acres, you momentarily lose control as the camera pans over to switch you into the next one. When you first load the game on a Sunday, Joan will start in a random acre. There are some acres that she will never visit, with those being the A acres, the lake, your house acre, wishing well, and dock. For each acre you find her in, she will not leave and move to another one until you talk to her and then leave that acre. What this means is that once you have found her, you can prep the acre if necessary, and bring bells to it before you talk to her. Or, if she's in an unfavorable acre, you can simply talk to her and then leave. Another very important thing to note about this behavior is that she will remain in an acre as long as you do, meaning that if you were in an acre with her at 11:55, she won't disappear after noon as she normally would. Once you've finished with an acre, you will need to run around your town and find her another one, which could take anywhere from a minute to 10 minutes if you're very unlucky. When it comes to buying turnips, you can save a lot of time running around your town looking for Joan by maximizing the amount of turnips you can buy per acre. This led to me having bells dropped on the ground in an acre where I found Joan, picking up enough bells to buy full inventory, buying the full inventory, dropping the full inventory, and repeating until I ran out of bells or space in that acre. An aspect that is unique to this game and very relevant is that the highest bell bag denomination is only 30,000 bells, rather than the 99,000 bells of the later games. Meaning if you wanted to keep 2 million bells in an acre, that would require 66 of the tiles to hold the bags. As mentioned earlier, each acre is a 16 by 16 grid of tiles, so there are 256 tiles available. You will almost never have this many tiles available in a single acre, as there will be a mix of houses, signposts, rocks, other buildings, water, etc. It is therefore important to be aware of how many bells are in an acre, as you can easily have too many and run out of space to drop the turnips before you use them all. I should also mention that if you are low on space in an acre, you can stand at the border and drop the turnips into the other acres without leaving it. The price Joan sells at will be a number between 70 and 129 bells. You could buy from her in quantities of 10, 50, and 100, though once you have enough bells, I don't see a legitimate reason to buy anything aside from 100, as it needlessly lengthens the process. Yet another difference between this game and the later ones is that you cannot specify a number of turnips that you wish to purchase. You just have to keep going through the dialogue to buy 100 over and over and over again. Your inventory has a total of 15 slots, meaning you will go through the same dialogue options thousands of times by the end of it. My time estimate for buying and dropping an inventory of turnips is about 3 minutes. I cannot emphasize enough how long and tedious this process is when you're buying turnips for hours at a time. Going back to the buying price, I'm going to throw some numbers out to highlight the difference between the low and high end. At a 70 bell buying price, turnips would spike and sell for 560 bells each. At a 129 bell buying price, turnips would spike and sell for 1,032. That means that a bunch of 100 turnips would sell for 56,000 bells and 103,200 bells respectively. The difference here is significant as you can only hold 549,999 bells at any given time, with 99,999 bells in your wallet and 15 bags of 30,000 bells in your inventory. Sure, you could hold an additional 10 bags or 300k in your letter slots, but those are not a factor when selling to Tom Nook. This means that in a single sale or interaction, you could sell 9 bunches of 100 turnips in the 70 bell case and only 5 bunches of 100 turnips in the 129 bell case. To take this further, that would mean that if you bought 10 inventories of turnips, you'd need to make 17 trips to the store in the 70 bell case and 30 trips to the store in the 129 bell case. If the inventory count was 40, it would be 67 trips in the 70 bell case and 120 in the 129 bell case. Another metric to consider here is that it would take 19 inventories in the 70 bell case to spend 2 mil, and 10 inventories in the 129 bell case to spend the same. To generalize, if you buy at a low price, you'll spend more time buying and less time selling, but if you buy at a high price, the time spent buying and selling will be more even. Of course, if you were to compare the amount of bells you'd be able to spend in an hour between prices, you'd make much more progress with the higher price. To summarize, I'd say it's more favorable to buy at a high price considering that you always make 7 times the amount spent in the case of a spike, and the amount of time that you have to buy turnips on Sunday is much more limited than the time selling during any weekday. I'll talk about the selling price a little later on after going over the patterns. Your town layout has an impact on overall turnip efficiency. When your town is generated, Acre A3 will always have the train station, and the post office, Tom Nook's store, and the dump will each randomly be put in a remaining A acre. Once you've paid off all 5 debts for a total of 1.4 million bells, you will unlock the ability to deposit bells into your account at the post office. You are granted rewards after your bank account hits certain milestones, which is the only reason that saving a billion bells is actually necessary. Whole point of the video, by the way. The distance between the post office and the store considerably affects the amount of time spent overall, as most turnip selling trips to the store result in running to the post office to deposit your gains. Typically, the closer the turnips are to the store, the better, so that you spend less time running back and forth between 2 places, especially when an inventory of turnips requires multiple trips if you're dealing with a spike. If we haven't hit the point of too much information, now would be the time to explain the turnip patterns in more depth. I'll start with the decreasing pattern as it's the simplest one. Each day, the price will fall anywhere between 5% and 20% of the current price, with said current price starting at whatever Jones sold to you at. This means that if you check the price on a Monday and the price is falling within this range, you will know without a doubt that the price will continue to fall for the rest of the week and that you should sell immediately to cut your losses. The other 2 patterns, the random with spike and random with no spike, should be spoken about together, as the only difference is that the random with spike will have a day that has its price overwritten with a spike. With these patterns, the price will either increase by a base rate of 5%, which increases linearly by 1% each time the price increases, decrease by 30%, or have a spike, which again is 8 times the price that Jones sold at that week. The chance of a decrease occurring increases for every price increase, so most weeks will see a price drop at some point in time. It is very important to note that this decrease could happen immediately on a Monday, so checking to see whether the price is decreased in the range of 5 to 20% versus a flat 30% is an important distinction to make. The spike can occur on any day from Monday to Friday, meaning that there are no Saturday spikes. Honestly, 9 times out of 10, I'd just recommend selling on the Friday if you've not seen a spike, as while the price could increase slightly on the Saturday, more often than not the chance of a decrease at this point would be far greater and have greater loss compared to the lesser gains of the first case. The last main thing to cover regarding these patterns is the rates of each happening. The rate for each pattern during a specific week is based off the previous week's pattern. For example, a spike will have a 50% chance of occurring if the previous week had a spike, with it being a 60% chance if the previous week was a no spike or decreasing week. What this realistically means is that there's always at least a 50% chance of a spike occurring every week, and watching patterns to discern whether there's a 10% increase or decrease in probability is a waste of time. The way that I viewed these patterns and subsequent outcomes ended up with me putting a lot of mental preparation into every Monday. The way I see it, there are a total of 3 outcomes on Monday. The first, where it's a decreasing pattern and I immediately need to sell. The second, where it's a spike and I immediately need to sell. And the third, where I have to wait to see if a spike's going to occur later. Now that we've covered all that, I can quickly talk about the selling process. Whether you've immediately identified a decreasing pattern on a Monday, or waited until Friday only to not receive a spike, you can at least find solace in knowing that it won't take very long to sell. You will always be able to sell a full inventory of 15 bunches of turnips at once with either of these patterns. This is a fraction of the time compared to selling during a spike, potentially even 3 times faster if buying at a high price. When selling during a spike, the first thing to do is confirm how many turnips you can sell at once and just start making trips. Personally, I liked when I could only sell 5 bunches at a time, as that meant that each inventory would take exactly 3 trips, and so long as I always sold 5 at a time, I wouldn't have to worry about missing any that got dropped behind something or were otherwise obscured. Other than that, it's very simple. Just bring the bells to the post office to deposit them and grab more turnips, or drop the bells on the ground outside in the acre for next Sunday. A tip for turnips that are quite far from the store is to bring the entire inventory so that you're only making the log trip once, dropping the excess outside the store before you sell. I'm going to take this opportunity to mention something that I realized very late into its run, and it's kind of been bothering me ever since I discovered it, because it's just low-key kind of crazy. When selling things to Tom Nook or any of the Nooklings, you can either select a single item with A, or use X to highlight any number of items before using A to initiate a sale. Having played these games before... I said I've played these games before. Yeah, I don't know, Squid Game reference in 2026, let's get it. Okay, having played these games before, I defaulted to highlighting everything without a second thought, but, if you just hit A on a bunch of turnips, you will get an additional dialog box where Nook asks you if you wish to sell all of them before giving the standard sale dialog. This is crazy. I never knew this. I don't know if people know this or not. That's why I'm putting a lot of attention to this, because like, low-key, what? This reduces the amount of inputs required to sell significantly when dealing with a non-spike price, and may even save time. Also, same behavior applies to fruit. Just saying. Okay, now that we're through all that, we should be able to talk about the run. There'll be some more technical things sprinkled throughout, but you get a little bit of a breather at least. On January 5th, 2025, I bought turnips for the first time at 87 bells per turnip. I spent most of the 1.5 mil that I'd saved in about 11.5 inventories. Unfortunately for me, I was immediately hit with a decreasing pattern and sold the following day. The price went down here by about 15%, so I ended up losing 225k, which wasn't too bad. Throughout the rest of the week, I continued to sell fruit to recover what I had lost, and I managed to get up to 2 mil. This time, I bought 109 bells per turnip, spent most of the 2 mil across 12 inventories, and waited to see what would happen next. Unfortunately, again, all week I did not see a spike, and on Friday I was met with a decrease. At this point, I thought the best move would be for me to wait and sell on Saturday to reduce loss. This did not go to plan, however, and I got another decrease on Saturday, meaning that I lost 46% of what I had spent, which is around 900k. I was working on getting all of KK's songs at this point, so I started my Saturday stream at around 8 p.m. By the time I had sold all of my turnips and done everything else, it was already 9 p.m, so I didn't bother selling more fruit before buying the next day. This week, the price was at 101 bells per turnip, and I spent most of my 1.2 mil across 8 inventories. On Wednesday, I caught my first break, getting a spike and turning 1.2 mil into 9.6 mil. The first spike is so important because before you manage to get it, any losses are actually felt and have an impact on the following weeks, as we just saw. Even if I was to lose after this week, I'd still have more than enough bells to purchase enough turnips the following week. And hey, that's actually what happened! I spent about 3.8 mil and 120 bells per turnip, selling them all at 100 bells at a 17% loss or 650k. Meaning that I still had 9 mil overall. From this point on, it doesn't make much sense to go through this week by week, as that would take way too long, and it really only made sense at the beginning because the initial 2 losses created a bit of a struggle. This is how February looked. You can see that I had 3 spikes in a row, but you'll also notice that there are 2 weeks where I didn't spend anything. For the week of the 10th, I was unsure of whether I wanted to buy at 86 bells, as it was a low price, and I was not sure of whether that'd be inefficient or not. Following this week, I decided that efficiency in this case doesn't matter, and maintaining a constant opportunity to make progress was way more important for my mental game. For the week of the 24th, I'll need to mention a mechanic that I've not brought up yet, and that would be Tom Nook's monthly raffles. As you make purchases of certain items, you'll be given tickets that correspond to that month, and on the last day of the month, the store will be set up for a raffle where you can spend 5 tickets for a spin. None of this, of course, matters for turnips, but what does matter is that during this raffle, you're unable to sell anything. As the turnip prices and pattern for the week are typically decided on the Sunday that they are purchased, this means that the store could effectively be closed on the day of the spike. At this point, I decided to play it safe and not purchase this week as the raffle fell on a Friday. The only other notable thing to mention about this month is that I paid off my last debt and I made my first deposit into my bank account on the 5th. Nothing too crazy this month, so I'll instead take this time to explain my initial purchasing setup. The basic idea is that I picked a number of good acres, meaning that they are somewhat close to the store and have lots of space available. For me, this ended up being these 6 acres. I kept 64 bags of 30,000 bells, meaning that each acre had about 1.92 mil available, which is what I found to be a good middle ground. Whenever I would find Joan, if she ended up being in an unfavorable acre, I would speak to her and leave and go off to find her again in hopes that she would make it to one of these good acres. This obviously had varying levels of success, and I ended up changing to a new strategy later. I should also mention that up until this point, and for the next few months, I started most of my Sunday streams at around 10:30 to 11 a.m., meaning that I would have at least an hour or an hour and a half for sure, and potentially up to another 50 minutes or so depending on if I got Joan in a good acre right before noon, allowing me to buy past noon. Buy past noon? Get it? We started April off with the best spike so far, but that's really about all that could be said about it. I had plans on the 13th, so I didn't have the time, and I really didn't want to lose sleep over this, okay? Let me sleep in on the weekend. It's very important. The following week, at least, was a decrease, so it all worked out in the end. I also set a record for the highest amount of bells spent in a week at about 5.6 mil, but unfortunately I lost on that week, which was pretty demoralizing. This worked out being just shy of 3 hours of buying, and then a bummer of an hour selling later. This was my first major loss of time within the span of a week, and the damage it did to my mental game cannot go unstated. I got a spike during the first week of May, which was really good, but at this point it had been a month between bank deposits, which really made me feel like I wasn't making any progress. The following week, I again had plans and was unable to purchase any turnips, except this time I lost out because the next week had a spike. Or should I say the last spike for the month. This was a dark time for me, to be honest. With the last 2 weeks of May being write-offs and the first 3 weeks of June being just as bad, I was really starting to lose my sanity. By the time I had gotten a spike on June 23rd, it had been 7 weeks since my last deposit into the bank. In those 7 weeks, I essentially threw 10 hours of my life down the drain, all for nothing. My perceived lack of progress was really starting to wear on me at this point, as I only had 102 mil in the bank over the course of about 6 months. I started crunching numbers and creating projections, as I knew that something needed to change if I wanted to get this done in a reasonable amount of time. I made a total of 43.5 mil from the 2 spikes in July, which is the most I had made in a month so far. By the end of the month, I was starting to show up on Sundays at 10 a.m., allowing myself more time to get bigger numbers. I started aiming to spend at least 3 mil on the weeks with low prices and spend as much as possible when I had a high price. In addition to the 6 good acres I kept bells in, I started to keep bells in an additional 10 acres. The acres I've highlighted in blue are what I would consider my secondary acres, being acres that I will purchase turnips in, but are further from the store and don't quite have enough space to be as effective as my primary acres. The acres I've highlighted in orange are what I would call my auxiliary acres, being acres that are never intended to be bought from, but instead store bells so that I can quickly bring them to nearby acres. Instead of spending time trying to get Joan into my favorable good acres, this made it easier to purchase and maintain momentum while I hoped to get good acres. From this point on, I kept 22 mil outside across all of these acres. My new strategies proved to be working quite well in August, as I managed to spend 5.6 mil and 7.2 mil, resulting in 88 mil across 2 different spikes. Seeing that number against the 102 mil that I had amounted in 6 months' time gave me hope for the rest of this run and the theoretical rates that I could achieve. September got even crazier, as I not only made 107 mil, but managed to do so across 4 consecutive spikes. The one standout week from this month requires me to explain another mechanic revolving around Nook's store. There are a total of 6 visitors or events that occur in your town. This would be visits from Sahara, Wendell, Katrina, Red, Gracie, and the GameCube exclusive 1-hour sale at Nook's. You will receive a letter in the mail from Tom Nook the day before, stating that there will be a sale at a randomly selected time between noon and 7 p.m. The store will be closed for an hour before and after the sale, and if you have Nookingtons in your town, you have to run upstairs to even be able to sell anything during said sale. Naturally, I had about the worst luck that you could imagine, where I had plans that I couldn't miss, and a 1-hour sale right in the middle of the very small window of free time I would have had during that day. This was actually the first day where I was unable to sell all of my turnips during the spike. A clear pattern had emerged these past few months, and continued that way for the remainder of the year. Consecutive spikes were commonplace, and most of the time only had a single bad week between them. This had me earning 51 mil in October, my personal best of 152 mil in November, where I set a new weekly spending record at 8.2 mil, and 103 mil in December. One of two standout days here would be Sale Day, later known as Nook Friday, where I spent 3 hours selling my turnips during a spike in the morning, and then another 3 hours in the evening buying out red for 3 hours. And yes, he just keeps setting up his shop after you buy him out. Don't ask me why that's a thing, that's just how it is. This was my biggest day of streaming this game, and it was so hectic that I forgot to get the market model from Tortimer, which still haunts me to this day. I'm still very annoyed about that. The other day that stands out would be the already very busy day of Christmas, where I barely managed to sell the mere 14 inventories that I had purchased. Going into 2026, my bank balance was at 650 mil, and factoring the 22 mil that was outside on the ground, that left me just over 2/3 of the way done. Yes, that's right, my balance went from 103 mil to 650 mil in 6 months, and yes, I will be bringing this up later. It was at this point that I decided to up the ante even further and take what some would consider drastic measures. Yes, that's right, I decided I would set alarms so that I could show up earlier. My plan for the rest of this journey was to aim to be playing by 9:30 a.m. or potentially earlier, if possible. At some point, my minimum spending goal of 3 mil had turned into 4 mil, and with the new year, I decided that I should aim for a 5 mil minimum, even if stuck with low prices. Then, reality struck. The momentum and patterns of the second half of 2025 came to abrupt halt, and I had to deal with a new batch of luck. Not only did the year start with tons of low prices, but it also came with 3 bad weeks in a row, resulting in about 11 hours of wasted effort. Thankfully, I was able to hit a spike with 6.4 mil to end the month. February thankfully treated me better than January, as I got some good buying prices and was able to put out some consistently high numbers. Over the past while, I had adopted a new buying strategy, I honestly can't remember when, but whatever, which involved using basically any acre that I found Joan in to buy turnips. Whenever I would find her in a bellless acre, I would then grab an appropriate amount of bells from a nearby auxiliary acre, or secondary, or even primary as a last resort, bring it back, and then buy a decent amount. When I found her in an acre with bells, I would do some calculations to see if it would be worth bringing additional bells to the acre. This would typically be the case if I had a near max price, as my standard 1.92 mil would only account for roughly 10 inventories, where most of my good acres would fit 15. I set a new single week profit record this month, spending nearly 8.4 mil in 7 hours between buying and selling. I also typically started slowly moving inventories of turnips closer to the stores each day that I didn't have to sell past. I had plans one of the weekends, so I skipped out on the 15th, thankfully working out in my favor, and I was hit with a decrease on the last week. Being up 43 mil from January and 111 mil from February, we started March at 805 mil. It was starting to feel like I was close to the end of this, but it still felt quite far. The first week we had an amazing spike. In fact, maybe a little too amazing, leading to one of the funnier moments for me. Okay, can I just run to this corner? Okay, that was not pretty, but let's just do that. Oh shoot. No, I've messed up. No! No! Oh, absolute cinema. That's crazy. Yes. I can't even be mad. That was hilarious. I saw the door open. It did open. You thought you heard? You did. I saw it. It went eh. It didn't even open fully. It got 2/3 of the way open, then just shut. I was running out of time to sell all my turnips, and at this point I knew that I wasn't going to make it. I was watching the seconds go by as I tried to squeeze another inventory in. Instead of cutting myself off at 3 bunches, I went for a 4th, losing a precious second or 2, making me miss out on the sale. It was absolute cinema, and if you don't see the vision, I don't know what to tell you. The next week had a decrease, however the one after that was another spike. This left me with 915 mil in the bank, and with the bells that I had outside, I knew it should only take a spike or 2. I was hoping to get a good price the next week so I could aim to finish on a lighter week, but the game had other plans for me, and it gave me a price of 73 bells, the lowest I had seen since June. I was able to spend 3.7 mil, hit a spike, get to 940 mil in the bank, and know that it was just a single spike away if I had a decent enough price. The last week of the month had Jones selling turnips at 116 bells per turnip, which is more than enough, but in all the excitement, I had completely forgotten about the raffle on Tuesday. Come the day of the raffle, I was actually speechless as I had forgotten over the past 3 or 4 days. So let's just see, because this is either going to dictate. Oh, I'm a fool. Oh, I'm a fool. I completely forgot that it was a raffle day. Oops! On Wednesday, when I checked the store, the price had decreased, and I was rapidly losing hope for the week. I just wanted to be done, but unfortunately no spike happened that week, unless it would have been on Tuesday. I started the first week of April feeling pretty worn out. The 3 months of spending practically 3 hours every Sunday were catching up to me, but I knew I was so close. I have to make a quick note about the 3.0 update of New Horizons. I streamed that on launch day for just over a month. It was about 36 hours, and that happened all while I was at the pinnacle of my turnip buying. Might have been too much. When I found Joan, she was surprisingly selling at 128 bells. I took this as a sign of good things to happen. I spent 6.1 mil, well over the 5.3 mil that I needed to spend in order to have extra bells to pay off the debts for all of my characters, as well as extra spending cash. Each day this week, I went to the store, got myself ready to see the price, closed my eyes to build the suspense so I could see what Nook would tell me. Monday was a no-go, Tuesday was a no-go, Wednesday was a no-go, but Thursday. I'm feeling a little about this week because I just don't know my chances. So we're gonna see. Now I'm gonna close my eyes because I've been doing this every day that I check the turnip prices because I really want to torture myself and build the suspense. So like I said, it was 152 yesterday. So if it increased, it should be at like 164 today. If it decreased, we're looking at like, I don't know, somewhere around 100 probably. And then if it's a spike, we're looking at a big over 1,000 number. And it's over 1,000? Oh, it's happening. It's happening. I had started the stream just after 6 p.m., so I knew I had more than enough time to sell everything, so barring anything catastrophic happening, it was time for my victory lap. On April 9th, 2026, I had become the first person in real time to record and stream my entire journey of saving 1 billion bells in my account, officially receiving my letter and post model on April 10th, 2026. This is honestly one of the most ridiculous gaming challenges that I have done, not by technical difficulty, but by mental and logistic difficulty. At this point, I'm still continuing to stream each day as I work towards getting the last items that I still need for the complete catalog. For the purpose of this journey, I created and maintained a spreadsheet to not only track my catalog progress, but also my turnip prices for each week, my bank balance changes, and all sorts of other interesting information to showcase here. According to my rough calculations, I ended up spending 110 hours and 55 minutes buying turnips on Sundays, and another 81 hours and 33 minutes selling turnips throughout each week. This adds up to a total of 192 hours and 28 minutes spent on turnips. This number is not 100% accurate, of course, as I had to go through each stream and estimate how much time was spent on turnips versus the other daily tasks. Sometimes I would do these tasks in between purchases, which would be very easy to miss. Most of the later Sundays were almost entirely turnips, where the earlier ones involved lots of other things. Of that near 193 hours, 23 hours and 55 minutes were spent buying turnips during decreasing weeks, and 8 hours and 58 minutes were spent selling turnips during decreasing weeks. 13 hours and 50 minutes were spent buying turnips during random no-spike weeks, and 4 hours and 50 minutes were spent selling turnips during random no-spike weeks. 8 hours and 45 minutes were spent buying turnips during unknown weeks, and 2 hours and 55 minutes were spent selling turnips during unknown weeks. Of the no spike and unknown weeks, only one of these actually resulted in me getting profit, and it was only 1.4 mil. To summarize, that means that 32 hours and 53 minutes were spent during decreasing weeks, 18 hours and 40 minutes were spent during no spike weeks, and 11 hours and 40 minutes during unknown weeks. Removing the 1 week where I made profit, 60 hours of my life were carelessly tossed aside for losses, and only about 130 hours were meaningfully spent in pursuit of the billion. The numbers here are only made up from the time spent on Sundays and whatever weekday that I sold on, so to be safe, I'd say there's another 3 to 7 hours of unaccounted for turnip ferrying. When it comes to the pattern stats, the whole journey spans 66 weeks. There were 35 perceived spikes, 10 no-spike weeks, 15 decreases, and 6 unknowns due to raffles. My most frequent spike day was Monday at 11 spikes, and my least was Friday at 2. Tuesdays had 6, Wednesdays had 7, and Thursdays had 9. My first Tuesday spike was in June of 2025, and my first Friday spike was in November. I thought Fridays were cursed for the longest time. Seeing as I had 11 Monday spikes and 15 decreases, that means that of the 66 weeks, 26 of them had me selling on Monday immediately. As I mentioned, I was able to make 550 mil in the last half of 2025, meaning that had I have known all of my strats and put more time in it, I could have maxed out my bank account in under a year's time, assuming I didn't just get dumpstered by bad luck. If you were to theoretically add the 550 mil of the last 6 months of 2025 and the 349 mil that I got in the first 3 or so months of 2026, that would leave me with about 3 months to make 100 mil, which is very doable. I think part of it is that I didn't put as much time into turnips at the beginning, as I was working on so many other things in the game. Ultimately, it doesn't matter too much because I was never racing to achieve this as fast as possible. I'm more so noting that if you spend 2.5 to 3 hours every Sunday, you could probably be done in under a year. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to me yap and joining me on this journey. I really hope it was as coherent as intended. All of my streams as of April 10th have been uploaded to my stream channel. The automatically generated thumbnails and video lengths should do a good enough job of making it clear which videos involve buying or selling turnips. As I mentioned, I'm still streaming on Twitch every day as I try to get the remaining items that I need, though the average stream lengths have definitely shot down drastically with turnips out of the picture. This video is probably already way longer than I originally intended to be, but I guess I had to say more than I thought. I want to thank everyone in my life for their support and for putting up with me saying sorry I have to sell turnips at the worst times. My sanity was tested throughout the entire run, so to the individuals that consistently showed up to hang out and chat on Sundays, I want to extend my thanks for helping to preserve it. As I said at the beginning of the video, I completed New Horizons, and I still can't believe that I had to recomplete it in the middle of all this. But once I'm done completing this game, hopefully sometime near the end of the year, I'm going to take a break from streaming Animal Crossing. Whether my next Animal Crossing game that I stream will be a new entry to the series or one of the handhelds is up to fate to decide. All I can say for sure at this point is that I will never purchase turnips in the GameCube game ever again. Also, liking and sharing this video would be cool and potentially epic. Can't believe I just said that. Going off the script here, it's been a crazy few weeks since actually completing this challenge, so I've tried to do my best to put everything together in a way that makes sense and actually covers everything, but I'm sure that there might still be some questions out there. So if you do have questions, please ask. I will do my best to answer them as thoroughly as possible through text, which will be way easier than putting a video together, at least for me. So yeah, anyway, that's it. I haven't made a long video like this since like 2 years ago, so maybe more of these in the future. Maybe it'll take 3 years next time. I don't know. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again later. Probably, maybe. Who knows?